From winning a European title,
West Ham are the 2023 Europa Conference League winners,
to barely winning at all.
You're looking around the game, you're looking around the dressing room, and it feels like there's not that drive there. And it's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to say.
From top 6 ambitions,
We should be in top 6. We should be there. We shouldn't be dropping points against Burnley.
to being relegation candidates.
I know the territory, I know what comes with poor results, and I accept my responsibility.
From spending a bunch of money on new players to looking like a championship side, what the hell happened with West Ham? Graham Potter looks about as confused and broken as he did during his Chelsea tenure. Or maybe he saw Voldemort. Get it? Because his name is Potter, like Harry Potter? I'll show myself out. This man has one of the lowest points per game averages among all West Ham managers, and there are no signs of things getting better. They were embarrassed on opening day after getting slapped by newly promoted Sunderland. Things looked better in the next game against Chelsea when Paquetá scored a worldie, but by the time the final whistle blew, they had eaten another 5 goals. The worst part is that this is just a continuation of the terrible form they had in the 2025 season. Nobody talked about them that season because the bottom 3 teams, plus Spurs, plus United, were so bad that there was never any threat of West Ham actually being relegated. They were losing matches and playing bad, but they couldn't drop any lower. They were basically stuck in limbo. Most people hoped that Potter would be able to improve the team with a full preseason, but it seems like nothing has changed. Add in the fact that they lost a super talented player like Kudos, and the team has gone backwards. It's disappointing to see because it doesn't feel that long ago that Declan Rice was lifting the Conference League trophy with David Moyes as the manager. It felt like the Hammers were entering a new era, where they could basically do what Aston Villa was doing, getting European football, competing with the big boys, and just being a team that people had to look out for. But ever since Moyes was let go, the team has gone down more than your local hooker. It's funny, Moyes was let go because despite getting results, his football was boring. Well, since then, Lopetegui and Potter have not only played worse football, but they're not even getting results. Now, most West Ham fans are probably pretty used to the up and down nature of this club. In fact, if there's one thing that is consistent about West Ham's journey in the past 15 years, is their inconsistency. If we go back to the 2010s, the Hammers were in crisis then too. The 2010-2011 season ended in disaster when they got relegated from the Premier League. On the final day, they were up 2-0 against Wigan at halftime, but then completely collapsed, losing 3-2 after Nzogbia scored a late winner. That result sealed their drop to the championship. Their manager, Grant, was sacked right after the game, and for fans, it felt like hitting rock bottom. Relegation meant a full reset, and the club brought in Sam Allardyce, a manager known for his no-nonsense, results-first style. His job was simple: get West Ham back up straight away, and he did just that. In the 2011-2012 season, the Hammers finished 3rd in the championship, which got them into the playoffs. They smashed Cardiff 5-0 on aggregate in the semis, and set up a Wembley final against Blackpool. The final was one of those unforgettable days. Carlton Cole scored first. Blackpool hit back after the break, and then with just minutes left, Ricardo Vazte popped up with the winner in the 87th minute. West Ham were back to the Premier League at the first time of asking. The relief and joy were huge, not just for the fans, but for the club's finances too. Allardyce had done exactly what he was hired to do. Now, when West Ham came up, Sam Allardyce had just one job: keep them in the Premier League. No more yo-yoing around between divisions. And to be fair, he did it. His style wasn't loved. Lots of long balls, defensive focus, not much flair. Basically Arsenal without the PR. But it worked. West Ham stayed mid-table for 3 straight years. Their first year back was really solid. They had some great moments like beating the European champions Chelsea 3-1 at Upton Park. That win pushed them up to 8th at the time. By the end, they finished 10th. With smart signings like James Collins returning and Andy Carroll coming in on loan, West Ham looked comfortable. It wasn't always pretty, but mid-table felt like a big win after just being relegated. The next season was rougher. They finished 13th, which meant they were safe, but the football was not pretty. They did make it to the League Cup semi-finals, which was exciting until they got destroyed 9-0 on aggregate by Manchester City. It was pretty embarrassing and showed the gap between them and the top sides. At this point, fans were also growing restless with Big Sam's defensive football. He even had to clap back at the booing one game by cupping his ear to the crowd, basically saying, "I'm getting results, what more do you guys want?" His last season started with a bang. New faces like Diafra Sakho were scoring, Kevin Nolan was leading the way as captain, and by Christmas they were in the top 4. For a moment, fans dreamed about Europe, but then it all fell apart in the second half of the season. They slipped down to finish 12th. After the final game, the board decided not to renew Allardyce's contract. It was mutual. He had done his job keeping them up, but the club wanted more, and the fans were sick of the boring football. In the end, Big Sam brought stability and kept West Ham safe, which was desperately needed after all the relegation chaos. But once again, the club chose to gamble on a manager who they felt could deliver more attractive football. So in the summer of 2015, West Ham brought back a familiar face, former player Slaven Bilic. His job was to build on the stability that Big Sam left behind, but add more flair and excitement. And for a short while, he nailed it. The 2015-2016 season under Bilic was one of the best that West Ham fans had seen in years. Right away, they shocked everyone. They beat Arsenal 2-0 at the Emirates in the opening month, their first win there in decades. Then a few weeks later, they thrashed Liverpool 3-0 at Anfield, their first win at the ground in over 50 years. These huge away results showed that Bilic's team was fearless. Then the signing of Dimitri Payet was the icing on the cake. This guy, to this day, is still one of my favorite Premier League players of all time. His vision, skills, and free kicks made him one of the most exciting players in the world, and he quickly became a fan favorite. Thanks to Payet and a confident squad, West Ham spent most of the season hovering near the Champions League spots. They also had a fun FA Cup run, the highlight being a stunning Payet free kick at Old Trafford. By the end, they finished 7th in the league, their best Premier League finish at the time. They beat plenty of big teams that year, and said goodbye to Upton Park in style. Their last ever game at the Old Ground was a 3-2 comeback win over Manchester United. It was an emotional night that capped off a special season. But as usual with West Ham, the good times don't last. The move to the new London Stadium in 2016-2017 was tough. The atmosphere wasn't the same, and the problems on the pitch followed. Things got even worse when Payet asked to leave in January of 2017 and basically refused to play until he got his move back to Marseille. Without him, the team lost its spark. They were knocked out of Europe early again and finished a flat 11th in the league. By the start of the 2017-2018 season, it was clear the slide down wasn't stopping. West Ham won just 2 of their first 11 games, sinking into the relegation zone. A 4-1 loss to Liverpool at home was the breaking point, and in November of 2017, the club sacked Bilic. Just a year and a half after that magical season, it was over. Looking back, Bilic's time summed up West Ham perfectly. Some thrilling highs, followed by frustrating lows. His team played entertaining football and gave the fans some great memories. But when things went wrong, they went wrong fast. Once again, the club turned to a manager known for steadying the ship, David Moyes. When David Moyes arrived, West Ham fans weren't too excited. His time at Manchester United and Sunderland had gone badly, and many thought that his best days at Everton were long behind them. But the thing is that West Ham didn't need a long-term project. They needed someone to keep them up, and Moyes did just that. In his first short stint, he tightened up the defense, gave the team some discipline, and even turned Marko Arnautovic into a striker, which paid off. By the end of the season, West Ham had pulled away from the danger zone and finished 13th. The football wasn't great to watch, but Moyes had done the job. Even so, the board decided not to stick with him in the summer of 2018. They wanted someone bigger, a theme that, as we will see later in the video, is very common with the Hammers. So they went for Manuel Pellegrini, a former Premier League winner with Manchester City. This felt like a statement move. Pellegrini promised more attacking football, and he was given money to spend on players like Felipe Anderson and Issa Diop. But it didn't start well. In his first year, West Ham lost their first 4 games. They ended up settling down and finished the season in 10th. There were still ups and downs, but fans got to see more possession football and some nice wins. It wasn't a massive leap forward, but it felt like the start of something. But that something quickly fell apart in Pellegrini's second year. West Ham began the season looking promising, even sitting in the top 5 by late September. But then, things collapsed. The goals dried up, the defense fell apart, and by December, they were just 1 point above the relegation zone. After losing to Leicester at home in December, Pellegrini was sacked. What was supposed to be an ambitious project ended in another relegation fight. So West Ham did what West Ham always seems to do. They went back to the stability. They went back to David Moyes. He returned in late December of 2019 with the team sitting 17th. Once again, Moyes went back to the basics, organized the defense, make them tough to beat, and slowly rebuild confidence. January signings like Souček and Jared Bowen gave the squad a big lift. When COVID stopped the season in March, West Ham were still just above the drop, but after the restart in June, they picked up some key wins, including a shock victory over Chelsea. A draw at Old Trafford against Manchester United in July finally confirmed their safety. They finished 16th. Not great, but safe. It didn't feel like much of a celebration at the time, but surviving that season turned out to be huge. Moyes had steadied the ship again, and with a full summer to prepare, West Ham's best days in years were just around the corner. The David Moyes 2.0 era ended up being one of the best runs West Ham had in modern times, something almost no one saw coming. Moyes, who had been written off by so many, turned the Hammers into a tough, well-drilled side that worked hard, defended strong, and really hit teams on the counter. People often call this football boring, but it brought results, and it gave West Ham fans some of the best memories in their lives. In fact, in the 2020-2021 season, West Ham had a record-breaking year. They actually started the season badly with 2 losses, but after October, they caught fire. By the end of November, they were sitting in 5th, and they never dropped out of the European spots for the rest of the season. Moyes built a team that was balanced. Declan Rice and Souček were the rocks in midfield. Ogbonna held the defense together, and up top, Antonio led the line with power, helped by Jesse Lingard's brilliant loan spell. They finished 6th, qualifying for the Europa League. Their 65 points were a new club record in the Premier League, along with records for most wins and away wins. It was the first top 6 finish since 1999, and Moyes, who was once mocked, ended up signing a new 3-year deal as fans finally started to give him some credit. West Ham followed that year up with another strong league season, finishing 7th. But the real magic came in Europe. They topped their Europa League group and then beat Sevilla, the kings of that competition, 2-1 on aggregate. In the quarters, they thrashed Lyon 4-1 over 2 legs, which sent London Stadium into party mode. For the first time in 46 years, West Ham were in a European semi-final. Unfortunately, Eintracht Frankfurt ended their run, beating them 3-1 overall. It was a crushing exit, but still a huge achievement for the club. Back in the league, 7th place meant European football. This time around, it was the Conference League. The season also saw club legend Mark Noble retire after 18 years and over 500 games. This season kinda summed up West Ham perfectly. Chaos in the league, champions in Europe. Then we get to the 2022-2023 season. In the Premier League, they struggled badly. Even after spending big on Lucas Paquetá, they couldn't score goals and hovered near the relegation zone for most of the year. They only secured safety with 2 games to spare, finishing 14th. Fans were calling Moyes to go, but in Europe, it was a different story. In the Conference League, West Ham dominated, unbeaten on their way to the final, with 13 wins and 1 draw. And then, in June of 2023, they beat Fiorentina 2-1 to win the club's first major trophy in 43 years, and their first European trophy in 58 years. The celebrations were massive. Prague went wild. In East London, they had a parade, and Moyes, who's usually so reserved, danced on the pitch with his players. It was the ultimate high, even if the league season had been dreadful. Winning the Conference League also meant that they had gone 3 years of European football in a row, something that the club had never done in its history. Moyes, the man that was so often doubted, had restored West Ham's reputation as a team that could compete both in England and in Europe. Even if the league form was a bit of a roller coaster ride, the high of this year will never be forgotten. After a strong European run and then a 9th place finish in the 2023-2024 season, most people thought that Moyes had done enough to stay, but the board decided to move on. They didn't offer him a new contract, even after everything that he had achieved. The man had gone 3 straight years of European football for West Ham and a trophy. The feeling was that they wanted to push forward, bring in a more exciting style, move away from Moyes' pragmatic football. To replace him, West Ham went for Lopetegui in May of 2024. On paper, it looked like a smart hire. The man had managed Spain, Real Madrid, Porto, and he had done well at Wolves. The idea was clear. He'd bring in more possession football, more attacking play. The board also gave him a ton of money to spend, helped by the massive Declan Rice sale to Arsenal the year before. Hopes were very high for a fresh chapter, but it went downhill pretty fast. Lopetegui's so-called progressive football didn't bring results. West Ham stumbled out of the gates in the 2025 season and basically never found any rhythm. There were a couple of good wins, like beating Manchester United and Newcastle, but those were overshadowed by heavy losses to the big boys. By January, they were stuck in 14th, with just 7 points above the relegation zone. The solid defense that Moyes had built was gone, and West Ham were conceding nearly 2 goals a game. The board didn't wait around. On the 8th of January 2025, Lopetegui was sacked after only 20 league matches. The fact that he had just 6 wins in that stretch really tells you the full story. His football wasn't fancy, they weren't getting results, and London Stadium They were tired of it. By the end, he lost both the crowd and the dressing room. The club released a statement saying that the season had not aligned with the club's ambitions. It felt like classic West Ham, moving on from a steady manager who got results, bringing in someone for style, and then having it all crash down. After Lopetegui was sacked, West Ham were left scrambling again. This time they turned to Graham Potter, a coach who was heavily respected for the work he did at Brighton, but carrying the baggage of his failed spell at Chelsea. He came in on the 9th of January 2025 with a 2.5-year deal. His job was to steady the team for the rest of the season and hopefully build something more long term. His start though was pretty underwhelming. West Ham avoided getting dragged into a relegation fight, but that was about it. They ended up finishing 14th, which was basically the same as when he took over. There wasn't much of a new manager bounce, and the performances were still inconsistent. Potter did try to put his stamp on things, giving some younger players a chance and moving the team towards a more possession-based style, but in terms of results, it didn't make a big difference. All in all, the season was pretty forgettable. No cup runs, a poor showing in the league, and really nothing to get excited about. Even Kudos, who had been so good the season before, looked like a shadow of himself. It felt like a huge step down from the standards that Moyes had set just a year or two earlier. Now in hindsight, sacking Moyes looks like the moment that things really started to unravel. Similar to when they let Big Sam go back in 2015. West Ham swapped stability for something different and ended up in another messy transition. The 2026 season couldn't have started much worse. Potter had the summer to reshape the squad and prove his style could lift the team. But early in the season, the alarm bells were already ringing. It's still early, but the mood around the club is pretty gloomy. And that's just the way it is with West Ham. Supporting them is not for the faint-hearted. One season you're dreaming of breaking into the top 4 or enjoying a cup final. The next you're praying about not being relegated. It's a footballing roller coaster that Hammers fans have come to know too well. They've seen this story before. A bad start that can quickly turn into a whole season of fighting relegation if nothing changes. The hope is that Graham Potter can settle things down, the same way that Moyes and Sam Allardyce managed to in the past, and then slowly bring in a nicer style of football. The worry though is that the team might have to scrap that attractive football stuff just to survive. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will like this one too. Check it out right here.